What are you going to do when the scenario happens to you? An hour of time is going to help you understand, oh, okay, these are simple things that I can do if the scenario does unfold, not only to protect the sanctuary, but also mitigate the threat.
The information in this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes. Our informational content cannot address all dangerous situations and cannot guarantee your survival or prevent injuries when the unexpected happens. The decision to carry a firearm, either for recreation or for personal defense, carries the risk and potential for injury and/or death. Therefore, it is advised that you seek out and acquire proper training before using a firearm or any firearm-related product.
What are some self-defense techniques?
What would happen if there was a global internet outage?
What should I do if I hear shots ringing out?
Or what I should do if there's a major terrorist attack?
What should I have? What's the
What
best?
should I do?
What does that look like?
What would you recommend?
Is there anything I could do?
All right, guys, welcome back to Dangerous Questions, an Ironclad original. We are going to get into some dangerous questions on this episode. And one thing I want to start with is seeking the truth. Most people are watching this or listening to this because you're trying to find answers to something that you're challenged with in your life, whether it's a threat scenario or even from a mindset perspective. And it's difficult and challenging to seek the truth in what you're looking for, because a lot of the times you have to confront something that you're dealing with right away. You know, if you have a situation that you are just being challenged with, you can't get over, might be a workout or even an emotion that you struggle with, when you start looking for truth, it takes effort and it takes time and it takes intentionality, which is why I'm here for you guys to be able to dig a little bit deeper into not only the experience that I have, but something that I'm passionate about, and that's finding the answers. So if there's something on here, or if there's a question you guys are asking, I'm going to look. I'm going to discern in my own heart, or even through training, what is the answer to that? What's the tactic? What's the right thing to do for that specific scenario? So with that being said, keep seeking the truth relentlessly to find the answer you're looking for. And if it pops up in your life, don't avoid it. Take it to heart and go start looking for it. And that's part of why we're here. So with that being said, let's get into it. First question is, I was pumping gas late at night, which we all do, all over the place, every day just about, when a guy approached me asking for money. He kept inching closer and I had my hand on my concealed carry, but I wasn't sure at what point I should actually draw it. How do you know the exact moment to go for your weapon without escalating the situation? This is such an important question. Leave this up here too, because I might reference this in a second. I think this is something we all go through. This is something I still reflect on, and partly because the scenarios are always changing. The direction is changing, who I'm with is changing. Remember, one of the key factors in this is, who are you with? Is my family buckled in the car or am I by myself? That is a big factor with how I need to handle a situation. Now, if I put this in a vacuum with a guy approaching me and I'm at the gas station, there are some tactics and principles that are going to stay the same regardless of if I'm with my family or not. And I think about this every time I'm at the gas station. When you're at the gas station, this is an opportunity to get a rep in. This is an opportunity to think about, where am I positioning myself? Am I carrying? What tools do I have at my disposal? Where's my family? What type of vehicle do I have? You should be repping this out, because all of these variables that change, even the distance that I pull up in my car and I look over my shoulder to see where I'm lined up with the gas line to where my gas cap is, that can change. So now all of a sudden the line that comes out from the pump to my gas cap is a different angle, right? Do I want to angle that this way? Do I want to angle that way? I know that's like geeking out and like way into the details, but it's a variable that can change. And if I only think one way, then I have to go back and be like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't put myself in the same position I always do. So here's my recommendation, first and foremost, before I even tell you the answer to this question. You have to set up your variables to control your environment as much as humanly possible. That way these things are the same. You're like, okay, I know where I put my gas cap, I know where I put this, I know where I keep my door position. That way when somebody does approach you, the variables are less and you really can isolate and focus on the threat that's at hand. Now, if we start looking deeper into this, because like most questions, I can get into this for another 3 hours talking about how to set yourself up for success. But already what you're saying is that I had my hand on my concealed carry. Now, that can be a good thing and a bad thing. I always talk about context. I always talk about the scenario. I don't know what that guy looked like, but when I start going like this, it starts cueing people into something, right? Maybe I don't even want him to know that I have a firearm on me, or maybe I do. I've talked to more people than I can count at this point that have deterred a situation because they go to draw. And the people are like, oh, wait, it looks like he's gonna pull out a gun. Maybe that $5 that I was gonna look for isn't so important. Or the guy that's just trying to get a pack of cigarettes, he's pissed off, he's having a bad day, and he's just coming after you because he wants $5 or whatever they are these days. But he wants money to go take care of the problem that he thinks he needs. These are all scenarios that we need to understand, but at the same time, it could be a very quick deterrent for somebody to be like, hey, we see reports of people getting shot, we see reports of people getting in a scuffle, but what we don't hear about is the people that are going to draw or do something to deter it, and it ends up getting de-escalated. Most people don't report those things, and it's happening every single day all over the world. So what we need to understand is that moment of what's the context of a guy approaching you, right? He's asking for money. I can't see his face, but you need to read it. You need to use your intuition. Again, I talk about WOFT all the time, West Orlando Firearms Training. I talk about them because the scenarios you put yourself into, they expose you to those types of things. So if the guy's just like, hey man, can I get some money? I'm like, all right, well that guy's not really a threat, but is he also trying to get me to drop my guard? Is he trying to get me to not think that he's a threat? I'm still on high alert. I'm still keeping my guard up, but at the same time, I'm assessing what's going on around me. Maybe this guy really is hurting and just needs some help getting home. Maybe he's got his family in the car and he needs a couple bucks. I do want to assess the situation. I think that there's an important element to this as well, because if you are well trained, you're gonna have more of an ability to say, hey, what is the situation? Let me communicate with this guy. Hey man, hope you're having a good night, dude. What's going on? Can I help you? I'm opening up the dialogue because I know that I can get out of, if 10 people come and attack me right now, I can get out of that. The average person cannot. So a lot of how you're responding and when you respond has a lot to do with the level of training that you have. That's why I talk about mindset and training to the T. You can never have enough of that, and that is going to increase your confidence to be able to handle these things when they come into your life. So it's situational dependent, and it sucks to say that because I'm not giving you a clear answer, but it just is. You have to be able to read the scenario in a way that you have that high confidence. If he keeps inching closer, right? He keeps moving closer, his intensity increases. If somebody comes up to you and presses you at a gas station, and he keeps pressing more and more and more, you have to at some point draw the line somewhere and say, that guy's really intense right now. He's even saying like, hey man, give me money or I'll stab you. Okay, well that was just a confirmation of the threat. If you go over that line, or say it's a little bit further because I need to draw my gun, I don't want him to do that closer unless you have the hand-to-hand combative skills that you can deploy. If he goes over that line, my gun is coming out. You have to draw those types of lines in your mind superficially, or even, just in a place where you can see it so you take the right action. If your intuition's saying this guy's a threat and you think there's a point of no return, you have to create that phase line for yourself and then act accordingly. So it's really going to be dependent on you, on the X, on the target, to figure out where is this guy coming from. If it feels wrong and like it's going to get violent and you are carrying, it's most likely time to draw your gun and mitigate risk to yourself. Again, there's all types of legalities to this, right? You can dissect this stuff to the nth degree in every different state. It's all different. But what nobody can replace is your instinct, is your intuition in that very moment, knowing what you need to do to protect yourself and to protect your family. So if that guy's inching closer, it feels like it's getting violent really quickly, and I'm like, hey, my kids are in the car, like, nope, this isn't happening. I'm also communicating. Hey man, how's it going? You having a good night? Okay, he just totally lost interest in anything that I have to say. And he's like, hey man, give me money or else. I'm like, okay, well, he just escalated to level 2. Now it's like, I'm probably gonna have to draw on this guy. I see a point of no return. If he goes over that line and he's like, maybe a blade comes out, or he goes to draw a gun, or I see somebody else starting to flank me, boom, gun's coming out. Right now I'm like, get back. Or maybe I even start telling him that beforehand. Hey man, don't take another step further. Don't come over that line. Don't cross that gas line or move any closer. I'm feeling threatened right now. I feel like you're a risk to me and my family that's in the car right here. Those are verbal cues to tell him that you're not playing around. but you're also talking to yourself. You're also reminding yourself that you drew a phase line somewhere and you're not gonna put up with it, right? If that guy's pressing and all of a sudden I see another guy flank, that's it, my gun's coming out. I'm not playing games with two dudes at a variable objective, especially if the kids are in the car. Again, I can geek out with this stuff, but I think that at least it's getting to the heart of what you're asking. When do I draw my gun? Okay, the idea of the exact moment to go for your gun without escalating the situation is why I'm painting the picture of that it's getting really bad. I don't want to draw my gun unnecessarily. In fact, I don't want anybody to know I have my gun unless it's absolutely necessary, because then that just tells them one more thing to be prepared for. And if there is two other dudes waiting to pop out of a car because they're just waiting for me to drop my guard and they're behind me, they could be sitting right in the parking lot over there in the back seat, peeking out. You'd never see them. This guy presses, gets me to drop my guard. I overreact and I go, oh, and then I'm like, oh okay, hey man, what's going on? Well, they just saw that I have a gun. So what are they gonna do? They're gonna prep for that. They're gonna come out guns drawn or something different. So keep that in mind as you guys are thinking about this situation. Great question, and honestly, I think everybody can connect with this because we all have to go pump gas.
Ironclad creates premium content no matter the environment. From extreme elements to unforgiving terrain, we thrive on crafting content that captures the essence of your brand in the most challenging conditions. Bring your brand story to life, ensuring your message leaves an impact. Ready to elevate your vision? Connect with us today at ironcladagency.com.
All right, next question. I have a question about emergency preparedness. If I need to bug out from my home in a crisis, do you think it's a good idea to buy a semi-truck with a trailer and convert it into a mobile home? Or would that be too expensive due to costs like maintenance and insurance, making it not worth it? Okay, a semi-truck is pretty serious. That's a huge investment. Now, I've met all types of people from all walks of life, and believe me, there's somebody that can just do that and not think about it. And then there's people that would have to give everything they have to do that and not think about it. And some of us, it's just not feasible. So if I think about it in your context, it really is going to come down to your personal situation, right? Would it be cool to have a semi-truck that you could just convert into a mobile home or have for whatever you want to take a quick trip? Of course, because you have a ton of space. You have something that can plow through just about anything. Yeah, it's a good idea, but let's talk about reasonability. You know, is the reasonability of the threat, is the idea that the threat could become real or that bad that you would need that type of asset in your situation? That really does come down to you and your financial ability. If you have the financial ability to do that and not blink an eye, and it's something that's gonna make you feel better and more secure because of something that nobody else understands in your specific scenario or location or environment, those are all things that nobody knows but you. I personally feel like it's a little overkill. I could think of a lot of other things to invest my money in than going to buy a semi-truck or a mobile home. I mean, you guys saw the awesome rig that Ironclad has, right? They had this rig that was totally done up with an off-road package. It had a place to sleep, had a lot of, bug out gear on it. Like that compact type of scenario would be really cool if the threat was really high. But again, even then, I'm thinking about, could I put that money to use somewhere else that's gonna bring my family more peace or preparedness? So it's just a matter of context. At the end of your question, do I think it's too expensive and worth the idea? Yes, I do. I think it's a little overkill for anything that we would have to deal with necessarily. And again, could that change overnight? 100%. Things could just go absolutely chaotic. And I'm like, oh, you know what? That semi-truck was probably a good idea. So it's not that I would totally shut you down, but I would say consider it and prioritize what you think you need in order of priority. That way you know where your money should be spent, maybe better than a semi-truck. All right, next question. Dom, if you carry Appendix, do you think it's best to carry a blade samurai style on the opposite side of your lead gun side, canted with the handle end higher and closer to the center line? This setup allows for easy access with either hand if one is occupied. What are your thoughts on this positioning for accessibility and efficiency? Okay. Key word in this question is center line. Okay, it is true. Appendix carry anything is going to be better for positioning and accessing with both hands. Yes, I totally agree with that. Now, if you're committed to carrying Appendix with, and you guys know, most of you guys that watch this, I carry my pistol at 5 o'clock. I put my blade pretty much on center line, offset a little bit to my dominant side. That's how I carry majoritively. But for you guys, or anybody listening, or that's new to this, or thinking, the center line is a position that is easier to access, which is why I have my blade here. It is more likely for me to pull out a blade in a combative hand-to-hand scenario than it is to pull out my gun. If I've already made the choice or allowed myself to become in a combative situation, then more than likely I'm like, okay, I'm gonna deal with this, but I might need to escalate somewhere else. Could I have to go to my gun? Yes, 100%. Flank out of the way, draw that, do what I need to do to take shots. The point being is that it's more likely with everything that I've done that I'm gonna have to access my blade first over my pistol to be able to mitigate whatever the threat is. Maybe the guy starts overpowering me in whatever situation, or I get stunned and there's other multiple attackers, but I don't wanna kill anybody, right? I'm just pulling my blade out to get the guy off me, to put some positive pressure somewhere. So that's just something to think about. Now, let's go back to your question about positioning of firearm and blade. I think if you're committed to carrying Appendix on this side, a blade is not a bad idea here because it's exactly like you just said. It's accessible from both sides. Can you get the blade out if I lead side carry the blade, with my right hand? Yes, it is a little bit more challenging, but I think that the way you're proposing to carry and the way that I've seen guys carry, it's very effective. I've seen guys that are at a tier 1 level carry that way, and they deploy both the firearm and the blade extremely well. I have no issues with it. At the end of the day, what I always end with any of this type of questioning about where do I position my firearm, where do I position my blade, it's gonna come down to your comfortability level. Even Appendix versus 5 o'clock. What's my body frame? What's my body style? What type of clothing do I wear? These are all critical things to analyze to make sure that the way you carry is comfortable, and you're gonna do it every day and you're gonna do it right, but then you train with it. That's the key. Be comfortable with the way you're carrying, commit to it. You should research why you're doing it. You should know your why. I'm carrying Appendix because it's easier to access. Okay, I'm carrying 5 o'clock because it's easier to get my weapon side back and pin it against something if I never want my gun to come out in a combative scenario. These are things that we gotta know and solidify, and then once we commit to carrying a certain way, do it with all your heart. Do it with everything you got. Get in the gym, get on the mats, test it, move it. Make sure that you can get in an extreme fight and your gun doesn't pop out of the holster and slide across the floor and you're like, oh, that sucks. Now somebody's gonna pick it up and use it against me. So train with how you choose to carry. I think the way that you're choosing to carry here is absolutely fine. Make sure you get reps in, and it will increase your accessibility and effectiveness. All right, I was at a sports game and got into a confrontation. Sounds familiar, also sounds common. My adrenaline dumped so much that I could barely walk straight, and it took me the rest of the night to recover my energy. I'm embarrassed to say it, but what are some tactics I can do to prepare myself for those types of situations? Okay. First and foremost, this is very similar to the gas station scenario, right? Because I think we all have found ourselves in these situations, or at least being like, man, that could happen to me real quick. This could happen right here, and what am I gonna do about it? This is why it's so critically important to live a lifestyle of training, being in shape, getting reps in, and staying prepared so that you're not knocked on your butt when you finally need to use it. Because this right here reminds me of the same situation. And I'm not calling you out. I'm also praising you for confronting the reality that you're living, but now it's time to take action. But it always reminds me of the video that I watched with this lady that was way out of shape, and she's watching her baby in a stroller move and roll towards oncoming traffic into the road that are going like 45, 50 miles an hour, and she's tripping over herself and falling and can't even catch up with the stroller because she's so out of shape. That is a nightmare. And this could become a nightmare pretty quickly for you too. So when it comes to controlling and dealing with your adrenaline, when it comes to being in shape and knowing what to expect, this is a proactive lifestyle. We have to lean into what we're choosing to do and what we want to be prepared for. If you're okay with the nightmare of adrenaline pumping and barely being able to walk and being out of shape and not being able to handle it, then it's time for you to take action on that. And at the end of the day, it's showing you something. It was a sign. God gave you a tap on the shoulder and said, hey, your life wasn't in a threatening situation here. You didn't lose life, limb, or eyesight, or a family member. This was a wake-up call. And I hope that anybody else listening to this has that wake-up call. It's time for me to take action. It's time for me to stay in shape. And it's time for me to get training. Okay, we control a lot of what we did in buds, a lot of what we did in the teams. We purposely go into environments that get us to dump our adrenaline. So not only do we know what it feels like, but then we can combat that and we can work through it. And then we train in it. So it becomes second nature. At this point, it is very challenging for me to have an adrenaline dump. It has to be something pretty extreme. And then even in that moment, I'm starting to control or translate or pivot what the feeling is. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it ambushed me. Maybe I'm getting that dump, but I know what to do with it. I know what it means to me. I know it means I need to increase my awareness, get myself in a better position. And the last point that I'm gonna bring up, which was almost my first point, but here we are, ending with it, you've gotta breathe. As soon as you start feeling that happening, or even start your breathing. Breathe deep in, and if you can do it through your nose, breathe through your nose. Breathe in through your nose so you're getting as much oxygen in your body before the scenario happens. That's part of how you can prevent this from happening, is breathing that good oxygen, taking good deep breaths. You're gonna feel, it's gonna be hard to do. Whenever you get pulled over or yelled at or something happens or somebody gets in your face, we all have to kind of deal with a little bit of that adrenaline. And it's really important that as soon as you start feeling that, I'm automatically controlling my breathing. Even if you don't feel like it's helping you, I can guarantee you that it is. Partly you don't think it's helping you because of your adrenaline. Your adrenaline makes you start taking shorter breaths to prepare for impact and all the things that it does to protect your body. But think about that from a standpoint of getting oxygen to the muscles that need it to mix with the adrenaline, how you respond in your body. So that's one scenario, that's one thing you guys can do to prepare for it. Now, again, embarrassed, wake-up call, yes, it is. I hope you're listening to this. I hope you take action. I hope you realize that the way to prepare yourself is to put these scenarios into your life already. Again, I always ask people, what do you fear? What is it that you fear the most? If you tell me what it is and you're truthful, I'm going to expose you to that environment as much as possible until you overcome it. Because you can and you will. You just have to be willing to step over that line. And a lot of people in this life just aren't willing to do that. And I hope by the end of this, you guys will go take action, confront your fears, expose yourself to that environment. So your adrenaline pumps, same thing I always say about West Orlando firearms training. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to expose myself to scenarios. I'm going to go to Philip. I'm going to say, hey, Philip, I need you to put me in an environment where I'm going to have my kids with me. And I want you to throw as many scenarios as you can at me, in the car, out of the car. I want to see if there's something that I haven't thought of from a position of being with my children, and now I have to respond. We just talked about one scenario before we started filming today, about if I'm confronted, with guns, what am I going to do with my kids? So biggest thing in this question, these are great questions today, by the way. Keep training and expose yourself to that environment so you can prepare and that doesn't happen in the future. All right, these were awesome questions today. And now we're gonna pivot to the scenario breakdown. Okay, this is in a church, and this was an attempted stabbing on a priest on the altar. Okay, this is during a service, this is during worship, and again, I don't quite know where they were. Obviously, most of you guys know I'm Catholic. I attend Mass often. And, depending on where it is in the consecration, the priest is not supposed to leave the altar. And I think out of instinct, right, people are like, oh my goodness, that's a blade. I got to get away from it. Regardless of that scenario, if we look at this for what it is, this is not something that's going to stop happening. This could be anywhere. This could be in any church. This could be anywhere in the world. Identifying this guy walking up to the altar, first of all, is like, this guy's got a yellow coat on. Does he belong up there? What is going on? If there's something out of place like this and somebody's approaching, especially the sanctuary, we should be locked onto that before he even gets there, honestly. And we really do need to be heads up and thinking about this, more and more as we're attending church, as we're attending a service, as we're in a public area. If there's somebody speaking and it's a politician, it's a leader, it's a priest, it's a pastor, we should be allowing them to do their job, which means that we're looking around as well. We're increasing our awareness to be able to help that person do what they do. Now, I didn't see the pre-context to this, but he was already on the other side of the altar, and a little bit of training here can go a long way. If somebody's coming at me with an object, could be a bat, could be a blade, could be whatever it is, oftentimes I either want to be way outside of the field from that thing, or I want to crash in and grab the guy. You know, you see these guys responding afterwards, you know, praise God that there were law enforcement officers in the congregation being able to step in immediately. But again, what can we be doing to proactively stop things like this from happening? Please hear me again. This stuff is not going to stop, and it's going to continue to increase. I want you guys to have the best preparedness. In your churches, you should be communicating with each other. You should understand what you're going to do to handle one of these things. You should be preemptively looking for movements like this right from the very beginning. And if you're in these positions, guys, if you're out there and you are a leader, it doesn't hurt to get a little bit of knowledge to what you would do in this scenario, even walking through it with somebody that's trained. You know, I've talked to multiple priests that I respect very highly and that are great friends of mine, and I've communicated this with them. What are you going to do when this scenario happens to you? An hour of time is going to help you understand, oh, okay, these are simple things that I could do if the scenario does unfold, not only to protect the sanctuary, but also mitigate the threat. So keep that in mind. You know, these are not going to stop happening. He had a blade, he was coming at him, and he chose to break contact. Ultimately, great use of the environment, you know, using the altar there, using anything that's around, grabbing an improvised weapon from anywhere that you possibly can. You know, those candle stands would have been awesome to grab, you know, that are right on the side of the altar. Use something you can put in between you and the threat. Get training if you can. If it's possible, get training. And ultimately, the last thing that I would say is if it's already too late and you turn over and it's imminent, it's an imminent contact with a blade, bat, object, whatever it is, crash inside and control the limb that has the weapon. That is the most, you can practice visualizing that. You can just visualize that and you know that you'll do it. You'll turn, I'm being ambushed, there's a threat, boom, crash in and grab the arm and wait. If you know what you're doing, crush the guy. If you don't, there's gonna be people that help you real quick. Okay, that's what it's about, is working as a team and understanding this stuff and communicating it. I think it's becoming more important than ever to be able to communicate this inside our churches so that we're prepared, so that if evil does present itself, we act accordingly. Be prepared, guys. Train on this stuff. You know, there was a lot of great questions today. I always say, take notes, put this stuff down. You know, the biggest thing that I said was take action. Implement this stuff in your life, confront your fears, and ultimately it's going to change the way you guys are looking at things and make you more confident. Appreciate you guys being here. God bless all of you. This is an Ironclad original. See you on the next episode of Dangerous Questions. Peace.